Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Munoz, and I'm the president and CEO at Voices for Children. Voices for Children is absolutely delighted to welcome you to this evening's presentation of The Real Word. For those of you who may not be familiar with Voices for Children, it's our privilege to serve as the court-appointed special advocate or CASA program for San Diego County, Riverside County, and the Pechanga Tribe in Southern California. We are absolutely thrilled to be able to share with you a presentation of The Real Word this evening. The Real Word is a panel of young people who have lived experience in the foster care system and who also have the experience of being served by a CASA volunteer. CASAs, or court-appointed special advocates, are members of the community who volunteer their time to advocate for children who have experienced foster care. From the young person's perspective, and you'll hear from experts far wiser than me, but just to kick us off this evening, from the young person's perspective, it's a caring, consistent adult, and that adult also has the ability to provide real-time updates to key decision makers in the child's life, so that all the information possible can be provided to help judges and others make the best possible decisions. I have had the privilege of hearing our panelists speak on several occasions, and my absolute favorite part of this panel is that no matter how many times I have heard our panelists so generously share their story and their insight, I always learn something new. So whether this is the first time you're here with us this evening or whether you've been able to join us several times before, I know that you are in for a treat. For those of you who might be joining us from outside of San Diego and Riverside County and who would like to learn more about your local CASA program, we encourage you to visit the National CASA Association website. You can Google National CASA, National CASA, to find your local program and learn more. It's now my very special privilege to turn it over to this evening's moderator, Luis Green. Luis is a dynamic speaker and an engaging business leader and entrepreneur, and one of his most important claims to fame is that he himself was also a Real Word panelist. So tonight we will have the really unique opportunity to be little flies on the wall, if you will, and hear a conversation between four very insightful young people who can share with us a little bit about their personal experience. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Luis.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I think I'd be uh, doing us all a disservice if I didn't give thanks and honor to Jessica and the Voices for Children team. Really, I mean, it's an honor to be able to moderate today and this evening, and um, just to help be the voice for those that sometimes feel like they don't have a voice or they don't have a voice. So I want to go ahead and introduce myself by letting you guys know I'm 35 years old, and as a profession, Jessica did a great job of giving me some really cool accolades. But the way I want to really pose it for everybody tonight is I want everyone to just, kick themselves back, just relax a little bit, and just remind yourselves that we're all just normal people. We're all just human, and the unique piece in it is that myself, along with the panelists, have um, been able to share a very unique journey together. Different seasons of life, but ultimately still going in the same journey of hardship at sometimes, moments of celebration, things that made us happy, things that made us excited, inspired us. So I think my goal for this evening is just to be able to moderate and for you guys to really hear from some of the most wonderful voices that I've got the pleasure to meet. And with that being said, I would like to hand it over a little bit. And if you guys just tell us a little bit about yourselves. We have Anthony, we have Vanessa, and we have Josh here on our panel this evening. How are you guys doing?
I'm feeling good.
There we go. There we go. Sorry, there we go. So Anthony, so I've had the unique pleasure of actually being uh, with Anthony at some of the galas, and I've got to meet Tim. I got to meet Josh and talk to him um, several times, and then me and Vanessa. I love you, girl. So let's just keep it low key, keep it really real, and let's just open up with let's start with Anthony. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and about your CASA.
Right. Thank you guys for all being here tonight. Luis, I'm really excited to share this stage with you and hopefully we can inspire some people tonight. My name is Anthony O'Leary. I am now 24 years old. I'm crazy to say 10 years removed from the foster care system. And about 12 years ago, when I was 11 or 12 years old, I received my one and only CASA, Daniel, who I'll be sharing a lot about tonight. Unfortunately, I entered in and out of the foster care system multiple times throughout my early life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I ultimately was assigned a CASA that really made an impact in getting me out of the system and making sure that those people that wanted to have me as their foster child, their guardianship child, did that. And that was my family, my great aunt and grandma who
Mm-hmm.
had basically raised me. And that was a huge point that my CASA helped impact me for going into high school. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you. Thank you for sharing. Vanessa, with a little bit of brevity, if you could give us just a little bit, don't give too much away because we have an incredible evening with some really deep questions and just give us a little bit about yourself.
Definitely. My elevator pitch, if I had to give it. My name is Vanessa Rosalie. I am 22 years old, 2 years removed from the foster care system,
Mhm.
and I spent about 13 years of my childhood in care. So I will be talking about that one and only case, my one and only CASA, Laura, who played a really big impact on my life. And I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. And Josh, bring us home.
Absolutely. My name's Josh. Now 3 years removed from the foster system, and I will be chatting this evening about my one case at the age of 14. I had two CASAs, and I will keep it that brief for you.
Love it. So let's kick it off with a question that I think we would all find familiar, but I want us to kind of take a little bit of a different turn and just really place yourself back into little Josh, little Vanessa, and little Anthony's body. And as we go through the beginning section of these questions, just kind of have that framework of like reminding yourself when Josh was little, when Vanessa was little, and Anthony was little, how were you feeling and how did you process these things? So, how would you describe your experience in foster care? Let's go ahead and Vanessa.
Yes, that's a very infamous question, but I was truly going back to when I was first in care. I was placed in care at age 8 and walked through my experience. I could best explain my experience as foster care feeling almost like an act, like the
Mhm.
circus, like a TV show where I was a character feeling like I was thrown into this brand new movie and I had to keep putting on these masks of not being angry, not being upset, not being confused to
Mhm.
please the people around me that were kind of tossing me around like a football. And I quickly felt like my mask had to stay on around these random people,
Mhm.
and I could only be myself
Mhm.
when I was alone.
Mhm.
Not to start off the night negatively, but I think that's how I could best explain it. And only
Mhm.
now have I realized that that mask can come off and that I'm
Mhm.
finally in my real life again. But almost like a
Mhm.
circus at sometimes is
Yeah.
how it felt. Mhm.
Yeah. And I think I'd like to really just welcome us to really feel authentic and liberate us. Um, so with that being said, Vanessa, that wasn't negative by any means. I think that the conversations are going to get deep because this is a really deep topic. So Josh, if you can take us on.
Yeah, I'd have to say younger me
Mm,
felt rather scared, really alone, you know, having ran away and then entering the system around complete strangers, individuals who I didn't
mm,
had my best interest at heart.
Hmm.
Nobody telling me that it's going to be okay at the end of the night. Nobody tucking me in, nobody to talk to, just
Hmm.
feeling really scared and quite frankly lost.
Tell us a little bit more, 'cause it really just perked up my curiosity, which I'm sure everyone else listening probably felt the same way. Tell us a little bit about when you said running away. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. I recall at the age of 14, my father had beat me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Best way is to a pulp. I was bloodied, broken rib, and just um, it really scared one of my sisters to the point where she came to me and she had said, I'm scared for my life, and
Hmm.
I think he's going to kill me. If not, I'm going to kill myself. And having my 11, 12-year-old sister tell me that really, really scared me to
Hmm.
a point where I found a way for us all to leave the home at the same time to
Hmm.
go and live with a family member temporarily before we went into care. And what 14-year-old has that natural instinct? It's very hard. So
Well, thank you for being vulnerable. I mean, man, thinking that there's like a difference of 2 years between you and your sister, and that you felt like you had to be the one to take charge, almost like a parent, in the middle of something that was probably devastating or was devastating. Thank you for sharing that. Anthony, how would you describe your journey in foster care?
Definitely. I think I'm gonna try to not sound like a broken record, but the reality is that a lot of us foster care do face these traumatic experiences before we even enter into the system. And
Mm-hmm.
um, at times when we finally arrive in the county's care, that we face more traumatic experiences. But
Mm-hmm.
I know that for myself, as I mentioned, I entered in and out of the system. So at a very young age, before I was even a
Mm-hmm.
year or two old, I entered into the system and not much memory from that. But returning back to my family and then re-entering back at 11 years old and right at the start of middle school when I was being abused by my dad, it was hard and it made me question a lot. Why was I deserving of this? Um, why are my parents making these choices to neglect us, to not treat us with their loving selves when I knew they had that in them?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of questioning with my little brother as well. When am I going
Mm-hmm.
to get to see him again? And I remember getting to Polinsky Child Care Facility as like the emergency
Mm-hmm.
home. And just being so scared because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know when the next time I was going to get to see my family was. And although my parents had dealt these traumas to me, I still love them so very much that
Mm-hmm.
they were the people I loved at the end of the day and wanted to be with regardless. So I still wondered, what was next. I had no clue where I was going to be in the next day, the next week, the next month, or
Mm-hmm.
the future. What the future held, I had no idea.
Well, as you're talking, Josh and Anthony, about your siblings, it reminded me of this story. It's funny how little things can trigger you, right? They just kind of take you way back. And you said Polinsky. And I don't remember the last time I remember hearing the word Polinsky. But I remember when my brother and I, Sean, we went to Polinsky. It was actually the first time that me and him were ever separated, right? So we're downtown San Diego, we're in shelter homes together. Everywhere we went, me and my brother were together. And I remember because of our age gap, they separated us for the first time ever. And I remember the door closing behind me into two little cottages. And I didn't know that my brother wasn't behind me still. And I remember screaming, screaming, screaming. And like, um, I mean, it felt like I was losing a piece of me, right? And so I think as I was hearing, Josh speak about transitioning and really feeling like he had to be the grown up for his little sister, Anthony having similar attributes. It kind of leads me to my next question. What is your relationship with your siblings like? And how was it then? And how was it today? Let's go, Vanessa.
Yes, it's actually funny that you asked me this question first because you mentioned losing your brother and seeing him close the door closing behind you.
Hmm.
When I was 8 years old, picked up from third grade and placed into foster care, I also lost my brother that same day. I remember walking into the foster home after making a list of the toys I wanted from my room and my brother running
Um,
off. He was my Josh, so he was my older brother and my big protector, and he ran off on me. And I remember feeling like this doesn't feel right, but I have to keep going. So my relationship with my sibling now, my brother Christopher, it's strained. He's gone through his own trauma, his own experiences, being a male, being a black male,
mhm,
and having some more behavioral issues than I did in foster care. I still love him, but
mhm,
our journey has been strained because they took me from him, just like
mhm,
they took my mom as well. So it's been interesting
mhm,
to try to rebuild that now that we're
mhm,
free adults, in a way.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's almost, wouldn't use the word interesting. I'd probably say more sad. That some of the things that happen through the foster care system, the way that it's set up today, which is the only way that they've known to set it up, right? Can create long-term damage. And obviously seeing that in your relationship with your sibling, even though, let's say you guys are older now, you guys can process it in a different way, the coping mechanisms may still remain the same, and having that strain or that frayed relationship. Um, Anthony, tell us a little bit about yours.
Yeah. Um, my younger brother is 5 years younger than me, and I have some other half siblings, but that is my
Mhm,
one and only full sibling, full
mhm,
blood sibling. So, with that being said, I was 5 years old when he was born, and it felt like
mhm,
I was kind of also uh,
mhm,
taking up parenting roles when my parents weren't around. So it
mhm,
was a bond from the day that he was born that
mhm,
was just kind of natural. And yeah, my little brother is like everything to me. So
mhm,
at that time, he never entered into the foster care system due to not facing any of the physical abuse that I did. However,
mhm,
obviously, you can probably imagine the traumas that he went through mentally and
mhm,
emotionally when I did go into the system. And
mhm,
similar to Vanessa, that took a really tough strain on our relationship. And as I mentioned, I was questioning so much of when I was going to be able to see him or my family again. And
mhm,
years had gone past, and it felt like when I saw him again, it really was still there, but I knew that we had a lot of work to do. But I do want to
mhm,
mention that because of my CASA, Daniel, he advocated for me to start doing visitation with my brother when I was in the heart of my
mhm,
foster care case, when he
mhm,
wasn't being allowed to join in on the family visitations and things
mhm,
of that nature, just due to certain
mhm,
regulations. So that was a huge pivotal moment. First time seeing my brother in about 6 months because of my CASA. So
mhm.
that meant the world. And that really proved to me that Daniel was there just for me. And
So what would you say, Anthony? So in that moment, right? Now I'm thinking, okay, how did I feel? What was it going on in my mind? So what is it that you felt that you were losing or had lost that Daniel helped you restore as you and your brother mended?
right,
Or sorry, as you and your sibling mended.
you're right. Um, like a lifetime relationship. It was like
Mm,
putting the piece back together that I kind of like survived with. Like it
yeah.
just felt like my life was complete again.
So good. So Josh, I'm gonna shift and reposition the question just a little bit. So as I was listening to you talk earlier about, that 2 year age gap and what had happened to you, I want to shift a little bit and I want you to tell us more about the role that you played for your sibling. Because I mean, we're looking at you, everyone's probably thinking he looks like Superman, one. So I'm placing you in the superhero role, but tell me a little bit about like how do you think or how knowing without maybe assuming, how did your sister see you in that season of your guys' life?
Yeah. I mean, I have two younger siblings, and I mean, now they tell me, they wish me happy Father's Day, and they see me as a best friend, and
You're not very mild. That's so. Mm,
they see me as somebody to look up to, and
mhm,
somebody who's always there no matter what. Um, they're going through their own trials and tribulations and facing their own
mhm,
adversities, but they know no matter what they go through, I'm there.
mhm.
So I would say they see me as somebody who's never going anywhere, and that's kind of what my CASA was to me.
So me knowing Tim personally, um, I know a lot about your story, a lot about the trials that you experienced, not just through foster youth, but the seasons thereafter.
Mm.
Um, because I think one of the misconceptions at times can be that um, once we go through the foster care, it's like everything just becomes peachy keen and we're adults and we just thrive at life. And I mean, obviously, knowing you, knowing Vanessa, knowing Anthony, that is more or less the case. Um, but I kind of want to understand more about the role that inspired you to be the man that you are today, that you were for your siblings because of Tim. Help us understand more of like what did he teach you along the way?
Mm. I don't think there's necessarily like a rule book or
Mm-hmm,
anything that he was following. It was mostly just the goodness within him
mm-hmm,
that slowly weared off onto me. Um,
mm-hmm,
Not judging, letting everybody make their own mistakes and being there when they do fall. It's okay to tell them I told you so because, it's one of the things. Totally kidding. It's
mm-hmm,
he's been there time and time again, every time I've over my own feet. Um, and uh, gosh, just today I was talking to him on the phone and I was kind of frustrated about a couple things that were kind of repetitively going on in my life. And he was there, um, kind of just like, dude, you're fine. Just let it
mm-hmm,
go. You're gonna figure it out. Um, so it's been nice to have that. And that's kind of what I've been able to do for my siblings. It's tell them like, listen, in 6 months your life's gonna change. The same way it was different 6 months ago.
mm-hmm,
No, just be patient with yourself and just keep
mm-hmm,
keep doing what you do every single day and keep pushing. And every day it's
mm-hmm.
gonna change.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that we can all probably sit here and probably, as we think back, like that's what I needed when I was little. Someone used to tell me it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that every single person on this call tonight can relate to. We've all had moments in time, and well, we just need to know it's going to be okay,
Yeah.
that we're going to be fine, and that there's somebody in our corner.
Mm.
And I think it's incredible that CASAs play that role in our
Yeah.
lives. Um, so I want to jump into something else that's maybe a little more lighthearted. but still just really, really, really organic. So while you guys were in foster care, right? So once again, putting yourself back in the little bodies of Josh, the little body of Vanessa and Anthony, um, I want you to help me kind of, and help everybody else really also put themselves in your shoe in a moment that was a milestone that you really felt celebrated, that you're like, man, like someone sees me, someone loves me. And, um, I want to open this up to anyone. It doesn't have to be specific to any one person, whether it be a CASA, whether it be somebody within the Voices for Children team, someone along the way. Tell us about a milestone where you really felt celebrated. And I want to open up with Vanessa.
So I remember reading this question and talking about this question and hearing you, Luis, say it again right now and hearing like the emotion, like, oh, I was celebrated. I actually would have to think about like what's the first memory that comes to mind with that, like, oh, yes, I'm celebrated. It would actually be when I was 16 and it
Mhm,
was 8 years into my foster care journey. I was at like
mhm,
my last placement before exiting. And I
mhm,
decided for myself, because of all the
mhm,
self-esteem that my CASA poured into me, my foster
mhm,
parents at the time poured into me, I
mhm,
decided to move to Italy for 9 months when I was 16 and study abroad. I was a student at the Bishop School, and there were so many opportunities, and I took that one. I dodged the SATs and the ACTs, and I remember just feeling like at the time I was so depressed. I was
mhm,
overweight. I felt so ashamed of being in my own skin, but going to Italy and
mhm,
being able to say that it was fully funded and I was just going to another country. My father's Italian. I've never met him.
mhm,
To connect to my roots, it just felt so like, who can say that they've done this? And that to me made foster care worth it
mhm,
because my foster care identity got me into that experience. And
mhm.
yeah, it changed my life.
That's
So that
beautiful.
moment was very celebratory.
So that would have been roughly like high school time frame. Is that right?
Yeah,
High
11th
school time,
grade.
11th grade. So I remember along the way, me and you had actually spoke about some stuff that was really neat to you. And I heard you're an avid reader. For those that don't know, she can read like 1,000 words a minute. I'm not sure if that's
I
accurate,
wish.
but we can put that somewhere and quote it, and we might get some publicity on that. Voices for Children teaches her how to read 1,000 words a minute. Um, so you're talking a little bit about value, right? A lack of self-worth, feeling overweight. Was
Mhm.
there ever a moment that your CASA either gifted you something or made you feel a certain type of way that really propelled like, hey, like you are valuable. You're someone special. You're not a no one. Like I see you for who you are.
Yeah, there were multiple times where she did this in the most smallest ways by just like picking
Mm,
me up on a Saturday where she could have been hiking or doing something. But
mm,
you mentioned the books. My Casa, Laura, is an ex-lawyer, so she's super big into education. And I
mm.
remember when she first met me, it started with coloring books. And then she started to pick it up, and there was no more coloring books. And I was 14, 15, no more Uno, no more Hello Kitty stuff. She gave
Wait,
me
so you
books.
graduated from coloring books?
I did.
So
Unfortunately,
I'm
it was
still I'm
forced.
still on that right now. Granted, it's because I have 4 kids, so it's by default.
Right,
But sorry, continue, continue.
right. Yeah, I was forced to graduate from coloring books, and Laura would gift me these books about extraordinary women that most of us know about, Condoleezza Rice or Malala, and she would give me these books, and I would look at it like, "Oh, this is cool," and I'd put it in the back of my closet. And I remember before high school, I was going to Bishop's. I would pick up these books and actually take the time to read it. And when I would read through these books and see that these women have gone through survival moments when they were teenagers, when they were young, and they made it to a place of advocacy. I remember
Mm,
sometimes wanting to cry, thinking, Laura
mm,
thought this about me years ago. And if I'm still here and I still have this book, she must be right. And so I took the opportunity for Italy. I got into UCLA because I realized if Laura knows that I'm this person, even when I don't know, she must be right.
Mhm.
So those books, if anything, made a difference to me. And it was a seed that didn't grow until it needed to,
Mhm.
but it did grow for sure.
So like as I'm visualizing kind of what that looks like, right? So she gives you these books around middle school time frame, right? Um, put them in the back of your closet, like every good middle schooler does. And then you go into high school. She actually ended up taking, was granted ownership of your education. Is that right? And then page through page through page, you got to understand what she felt about you years before that, which helped shape your identity and value proposition on who you are, who you really are. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much in a nutshell. Yeah.
That's, um, Anthony, same question. While you were in care, uh, what was your experience like when you were celebrated for certain milestones?
Yeah. I'm hearing everybody else. This is hard to follow up. You guys are giving some good juicy responses here, but I think I see this as kind of like an opportunity to shout out a few people because I had a lot of support systems that celebrated me when I started to kind of thrive and grow into myself.
Mm,
And I mean, it has to start with my Casa Daniel because
mm,
we were spending so much time together that it was like week by week he was not really celebrating the big milestones, but he was
mm,
doing the day by day sort of confidence
mm,
building, investing in me and in who I was, and uh reminding me that I'm capable. So that was like point number one. And
mm,
once again, because of my Casa Daniel, I finished my time in the system, and my great grandma and great aunt gained guardianship of me. These were two women that basically raised me. I was
mm,
always in my great grandma's house as a kid, so she meant the world to me, and I was so happy to finally just be done and be in
mm,
her home. So going into freshman year of high school, it felt like with the confidence my Casa Daniel gave me and the love and everything that I felt by being back in my home, I could finally succeed, sort of. And
mm,
um, I think about this often because if it wasn't for my Casa Daniel, I wouldn't have been able to be in that placement. I don't know where I would have gone,
mm,
but at that time, my great grandma was about 90 years old. So the court, as you can imagine, was questioning her ability to be my guardian and be
mm,
somebody who could, take care of a young teenager and deal with everything that comes with that. But she was more than capable. She was the most capable woman in the world. And with that, she passed away right when I turned 18, a few days afterwards. So
mm,
to me, it felt like that was like her moment of celebration for me. Like I
mm,
I graduated the next couple months from high school, and if it wasn't for my Casa Daniel, I wouldn't have been able to spend the last 4 years of her life with her. So that was
mm,
huge to me. But lastly, I really want to shout out another person that just like made a huge impact for me, and that's
mm,
a staff member at Voices for Children. Her name is Miss Sabrina Gooseby. She
mm,
uh, kind of heard my story 10 years ago when I got out of the system. I sent a message to her and um, said that I really want to make a difference somehow. I know that I have this story and this experience, and Voices for Children gave me a CASA, the most important thing in the world to me. And I want to know what I can do to like help somebody else, you know? And from that point on, she kind of took me under her wing and started investing in who I was and finding ways for me to grow. And if it wasn't for Voices for Children, similar to Vanessa, I don't think I would have been able to attend college for free. I graduated from UCLA 2 years ago, and all along these ways, I kept coming back to what Voices for Children, my CASA most importantly, but Miss Sabrina Gooseby did for me. And she was there every step of the way from my high school graduation to my college graduation 2 years ago. So I really do owe her so much.
Oh, thank you for sharing. So I think we can all relate to that. I see Josh is shaking his head. Vanessa's like, yes. And I'll say for me, you know, like as you're bringing up Sabrina, if you're gonna get me to cry, if anybody's ever been to one of these before and you've seen me, I'm a sob. I hate crying, but it just happens. And I'll say, you know, she was actually there when I first came to Voices for Children, and I'm 35 now, so we can do the math backwards. Uh, Little 11-year-old Luis um, wasn't as proper as I am today, and I mean to this day I still call her Mama Bear. And like I remember walking in and the staff, and to this day she's actually the last remaining person that was there from the moment I was in foster youth. And I mean I don't know how you thank somebody the same way that I would thank Art, my Casa, the same way I would thank Sabrina. I don't think there's any hugs that are long enough, any letters that I can write with thank yous that would be enough to truly demonstrate the gratefulness um, that I think we can all truly give to Sabrina. And she's the person that never looks for a thank you. She probably is never even on camera. But I'd be remiss not to say thank you, Sabrina. And so as we go into the next question, I want to shoot it over to Josh. Um, so as you were growing up, right, going through the foster care system, can you walk me on the first time that your CASA came into the picture? What were your thoughts? What were you thinking? I mean, if you know Tim, he's a goofball, but he's also kind of stiff at the same time, um, but so kind. So I just want to share with everybody what was it like. That way, if anybody that's out there uh, that debated being a CASA or anybody who's been a CASA uh, can hear it from what we experienced as they came into the doors of wherever we were at. Josh, kick us off.
Well, this is one of my favorite stories to tell actually, because he was my second CASA. And
Hmm.
since my last CASA, I had no idea that I was getting a new one. Now my staff came up to my room. I'm laying in my bed. I've, just finished school, and they're like, somebody's here to see you. And I'm like, now no, who could it be? A social worker, a lawyer? Wasn't no family member, that's for sure. So it was always like, oh great. So you go downstairs, tall dude with a cheeky grin. All of us know what that grin looks like. And um, he's like, "Hi, I'm Tim. I'm your casa." And I'm like, "Cool." So we're sitting on the couch, and he's just like talking as he does, because there's no such thing as an off switch. You could put an off switch on and turn it off, and it just doesn't go away. Um,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, all right, I'm done. I went upstairs, took a nap, probably came down like 45 minutes to like an hour later. And he's there. And I lived in a group home with dudes you couldn't put in the same room without wanting to rip each other's heads off. Okay.
And how many kids were in how
Ah,
many
There's a
kids were in the
total of
group home?
6 of us, including me in that
How
house.
many? Six?
6, yeah,
Six, okay.
staff members. He had all 5 of the other kids, the 2 staff members, all sitting in the same room, chatting. watching the god-awful Detroit Lions.
It's okay. We can edit that later. I'm just kidding. Continue.
What? You know, so what is this? You know, I'm sitting there, so I'm sitting down. I didn't say a word. I'm kind of pouting, you know, because I'm like, whatever, like, cool.
Mhm,
Trying to play it off like it's no big deal.
mhm.
And I was like, wow, this is freaking weird. Um, these guys in the same room and chat. Looking back on it now, that's quite a talent, to be honest.
Mhm,
So,
mhm,
um, yeah, that was kind of my first interaction with him. I definitely gave him the cold shoulder. You know, most foster youth always have this big wall, this big barrier,
mhm.
an
Yep,
impenetrable fortress that only comes
that's
down to
right.
time. And he was able, um, he was able to knock it down within about I want to say a year and a half to knowing him. Um,
Mhm,
due to just the incredible work that he does for his youth. I mean, it's what he's done for Johnny G, E-Man, another panelist with us. And
mhm,
when I entered care, I didn't get to see my sisters for the first, gosh,
mhm,
um, I want to say 11 months. No contact, no conversation. I went to like
mhm,
high schools, went to Polinsky, Juvie, New Alternatives
mhm,
18 into a group home. And that's where I met Tim. And one of the questions he asked me first day was, what is it that you can, what is something that I can do for you that nobody else can? And
mhm,
I was like, honestly, I'd like to see my sisters. Now, it was maybe 2 months later. I was kind of like the question had came and went, and we went on an outing, and I didn't realize that I didn't realize where we were heading. By no means. I'm like, man, we've been in the car for a long time. Usually we go get like some pho, wings, something.
mhm,
We go to the golf course, and he tortures me on the golf, swinging clubs. We pull up to this place, and I walk in, and both my sisters are sitting there.
mhm,
Now, I was so overflowed with emotion that I didn't know what to feel. I didn't cry,
mhm,
angry, I wasn't upset, I was just so like, wow. And it was kind of like that was a pivotal moment in our relationship where I was like, this guy's really here for me.
mhm.
So
We can just sit here for a second. Like, I think everyone's feeling the thickness of what that feels like. I can see it in the chat. Hearts are going off everywhere. You're seeing thumbs up, crying, because that's authentic, right? And so with that being said, Vanessa, walk us through the journey of when you first saw Laura walk right into your life.
Well, to be completely honest, I was 11 years old, and the first thing I thought when I saw her was great, another white lady.
Mm-hmm.
And as a little biracial girl, who my mother
Mm-hmm.
is a black woman, my siblings are all brown, and my first foster home was
Yeah.
a black woman. My second home was a black
Mm-hmm.
woman. I went to Polinsky. When I met Laura, I was at my sixth foster home and living
Mm-hmm.
with a white family for the first time in my life. It was complete culture shock. It was at a time where I was straightening my hair because they didn't know how to do my curls. I felt
Mm-hmm.
kind of disfigured in my body as a little curvier girl around kids who were shaped differently. And I remember when I met her again, just feeling like, ah, another white lady. And not in like oh, here we go again, but more of like I already know that I have to put on a mask and be a good little kid and please her. And I remember that stereotype immediately dropping as soon as I saw that she was just like me in a bigger body. She cared about
Mm-hmm.
school, she cared about education, and she finally was someone who took it seriously. I was around a lot of foster youth or kids who were spoiled and didn't really see the value in going to school and
Mm-hmm.
didn't see school as a safe haven like I did. So she became really
Mm-hmm.
quickly someone that I looked up to that reminded me it was okay to think school was cool. It was okay to think
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, I could dream about who I was going to be one day, want to be president, and not think it was too far fetched. So my journey
Mm-hmm.
with her quickly became very not how do I become like Laura, but
Mm-hmm.
if she can do it, I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if she believes in me, I can do it. And it quickly became that. So there was that stereotype, but it went away.
Mm-hmm. That's
Hmm.
so sweet. Thanks for sharing that.
Hmm.
Anthony, when Daniel came into your life, how did that? Well, give us the scene. Like, let everyone feel like they were in the room with you. Where were you? What was around you? What were you listening to? And how did he walk in and how did he look?
Yeah, absolutely. At that time, I had met Daniel. I was in my foster home.
Mm-hmm.
And just to kind of give some context into that, I
Mm-hmm.
was in a foster home with a family that I grew up with. It was basically my best friend in middle school and elementary school, and his dad was my baseball coach. And this was a family I was very familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And when they heard my story, they picked me up from Polinsky and became my foster family. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm forever indebted to them for that, although things didn't really work out and I ended up moving out to go into guardianship with my great grandma. This was
Mm-hmm.
a family to me that means everything, and I still am really close with them. So I'm grateful for
Mm-hmm.
them forever. But I did want a CASA at this point in my
Mm-hmm.
case because I wasn't really being heard, and I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted to return back to
Mm-hmm.
my forever home, but
Mm-hmm.
it felt that
Mm-hmm.
social workers, whoever, wasn't really seeing that. And
And in this point of your journey, did you know that CASAs existed?
somewhat,
Okay.
my great aunt had kind of shared with me that she was
Mm-hmm.
trying to find a way to get me one of those, but to me it was just like, oh man,
Mm-hmm.
like Josh said, another social
Mm-hmm.
worker, another random person that's gonna come in and
Mm-hmm.
out of my life and read my court report and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of label me as whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that CASAs were like
Yeah.
volunteers. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Could I do an exercise with you,
yeah, of
Anthony?
course. Yeah.
Anthony? Okay, so it's gonna feel a little awkward because it's probably newer than anything you've ever done. So just follow along with me, okay? So close your eyes with me. Okay. I want you to picture yourself and where you were the moments before Daniel came into your life. Not figuratively, but literally. Where were you sitting as you looked to your left? Who was around you? What was around you? Was there a table, a cup, a lamp, books, furniture? You look to the right. What's around you? Were you inside, outside? What was the weather like? And with your eyes closed, stay in the moment. Walk everybody. What is it that you saw and what did you feel and think as you saw Daniel for the first time? Keeping your eyes closed.
Um, it was a random Wednesday evening, and
Mhm.
I was sitting in my living room at my foster family's house, and um, I knew that somebody new was kind of on their way, and I was going to meet them tonight.
Mhm.
Wasn't really looking forward to it.
Mhm.
And we get the knock on the door, and it's just, yeah, like nothing important, you know. I was ready to call it a day, basically. I had a long day at
Mhm.
school in sixth grade. So, um, Daniel comes in, and he's relatively tall white guy. He's about my height, and he has a cast on because he shared that he just got into like a snowboarding accident. So that was really impressive from point one, and he definitely was a little bit athletic, and that kind of piqued my interest too because I'm
Mhm.
playing sports and whatnot at that time. So
Mhm.
um, he
So with
introduced
your
me.
eyes
Yeah, go ahead.
consistently closed, what was his face expression and what did it mean to you?
he was just so excited to meet me. He was like, he couldn't stop smiling. And to me, that was just like different than any social worker, any court reporter, anything of that nature that I had seen before.
Awesome. You can open your eyes. I felt like I was seeing art again. I remember sitting down and he walked in, big old grin on his face, older gentleman, and he walks in with a box of Legos. It was the bigger Legos, not the little tiny ones. And I wasn't into real estate development then, so maybe that's where my interest came for being a real estate developer. And so I remember he put the little box down and he was just so gentle, so kind. And I think it's a good reminder for anybody that's watching who is a CASA or that's thinking about being a CASA, that you don't need to present the world to somebody to make them feel loved, to make them feel seen, valuable. Because from the very first moment, as we think back now, maybe in that moment, maybe we were guarded and maybe we had some what are maladaptive coping mechanisms today, but then they were highly compatible and not maladaptive. They were coping mechanisms that kept us alive. Regardless of how we process it, looking back, all four of us can think back and think, man, that was so impactful. That smile, how they came in with their continence, with their smile. And I'd be hard pressed to say that our CASAs never had a challenging day when they met us and saw us because they're human, right? I'm sure that there was a long day at work for some of our CASAs. I'm sure that there was moments where they didn't want to do something. Maybe they were tired. Maybe they were hurt. I mean, Anthony's CASA came in with a broken limb. uh, So, which leads me to my next question. Tell us about a moment in time where you remember having so much fun with your casa, where you just like, and let's not, I want it to be one that maybe you haven't shared because I've seen videos of Anthony playing basketball with his casa. Cool, that was probably really fun and iconic. But I want us to think about a time where you remember like I just had so much fun with my casa during this event, this thing, this outing, or something simple. I'll start off. I'll give you something, give you guys a little bit of time to think because this wasn't a question that was anywhere on any of our stuff. Um, so Art, we used to drive around and he used to play the fart song. My brother loved it. So the way it would go, we'd be driving, and I mean, my brother and I during the season of our life, we didn't really have a lot of laughter. We were plagued with a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, and Art just knew how to penetrate that in a way that spoke my language at the time. And he'd play like these little fart songs, and the way that it'd go, uh, you guys have all probably heard it. It's when I'm walking up the ladder and I hear something splatter, diarrhea, diarrhea. Um, and it goes through a bunch of different variations of the same thing. But me and my brother loved it. We'd be getting in the car and we're like, R, play the diarrhea song, play the poop song, play the fart song. Um, so that was I mean, honestly, to this day, it's like such a cherished moment between me and Art and my brother. Um, I think my brother still likes those songs. He never grew out of them, but he's not here to say he's not, so we'll just assume. So Josh, if you can give us a moment with Tim, because we know that there's probably tons of them knowing Tim.
Oh gosh, there's a bunch of embarrassing stories on my end, a bunch of very embarrassing stories on his end.
Yeah,
He'd never admit to that side.
yeah.
No, gosh, I'd probably have to say Sitting in his truck. He had an F-150 King Ranch. I think I was like 17 at the time, and I had no idea why you'd have want a truck in Southern
Mhm.
California, just because of how c condensed the area is. But I remember sitting in his truck, and he had asked me, he's like, "What kind of music do you listen to?" And I'm like, how do I explain it so that way you'd understand?" And that was me jabbing at him being older, and because I would always do that. And I remember playing in my music, and I think it was like 21 Savage or something like that playing. And I just remember him just like rocking out to it and just like really getting into it. And I'm just like, what the heck? I was expecting so much judgment.
So I think what we're all thinking is, what did this look like? So can you give us the best illustration?
Oh,
Show us
you're gonna
Tim
have to have
rocking out.
side profile of
Get in character.
he's just
Yeah.
like he's like, what do you listen to? Okay. And he just sat there for a minute, and then it like when he's just like, yeah. Mm. I'm kidding. Or I think we were going to eat because I was like it was that or golf. That was those substitute.
Uh-huh.
And that's what we were going to do.
Yeah.
And I just remember like, I mean, hysterically laughing, just cackling at the whole situation.
Hmm.
And it was cool because we bonded over something. I always play music around him and he does the same thing. I'll play it. It was what, just a couple months ago we were playing music in his car and we were heading, I think him and I were catching dinner and he did the same thing. And he's just like, yeah. And just
Yeah.
getting so
But I love that. So
yeah.
what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shoot the question over to Vanessa, but I'm gonna add a little bit something to it, with a little bit of brevity because we are coming here to the end of our evening. So tell us about a moment that you guys had that was just so much fun, belly laughing, and then I want you to close out by telling us, who are they to you today?
To clarify who Laura is to me today.
Who Laura is to you today?
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's hard to match that story about Tim because it just cracks me up. But the one time I felt happiest with my CASA would
Mm,
probably be the day that I finally was my most authentic teenage, grumpy attitude. I'm not having it type of day when my CASA took me to shadow at the bishop school. I was 14. I woke up and I was just feeling like I'm gonna bother Laura today. When she comes to pick me up, I'm just gonna give her hell. And I never used to think like this, but I was
yeah,
14, just exposing the
yeah,
14-year-olds.
yeah.
And my favorite thing is I knew Laura wasn't gonna say, get out my car and go home. She was gonna not take it, but she was gonna kind of like batter with me, play that
Mm,
attitude game. So I got in the car and I was like, Laura, I don't want to go to this. She pulled out the parking lot anyways. She put on her country music, so we're jamming on the way to
mhm,
Bishop's. We get there, and I don't know if any of you have been to the Bishop School, but it's in La Jolla. It's on the beach. It's a beautiful campus. And I was born into homelessness, so I've seen all kinds of roach
mm,
infestations and all kinds of things.
mm.
So to me, I remember pulling up to campus and feeling like I made it. Like I must be the fresh princess of La Jolla right now because I made it. And I hadn't got into Bishop's yet. She was just taking me to tour the school. And I remember getting out the car and being like, Laura, I'm going here. And we started cracking up and we just enjoyed the whole day. It felt like I finally had a parent who was being my parent, who was exposing me to new opportunities, who was seeing me for my potential. And
Mhm,
we left that day full off of chocolate chip cookies. And I remember her dropping me off and me just feeling like not only did I get to be 14, but I'm excited for my future. And
mm,
to this day, Laura will forever be like Sabrina, like all of our CASAs, that kind of adult who the best way to pay them back is to just continue to succeed. And it's the best
mm,
feeling knowing that they don't expect anything from us, but to just thrive. And
mhm,
to me, that's who she is today. Someone who just wants to see me be
mm.
happy. So I love Laura. I'm gonna force her to come to all my events for the rest of my life.
Um, Anthony?
Yes. Oh man, these are good stories. I can't top this.
Yeah.
I think for Daniel, it was a moment when he wasn't my actual CASA anymore, and now this is maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, near the end of my high school career. And
Mhm.
at this point, for those of you that are unaware, CASAs cannot allow you to come to their home or introduce you to their family, or any personal life as you're going through your court case is allowed to kind of be involved. So this also speaks to, be ready for a lifetime commitment, whether you're going to be a CASA at some point or just a mentor or friend. And it was at this point for me that Daniel was just a support system for me. I was no longer in the system, but to me, I could just call him Daniel. And um, I got to visit him at his house, and I met his two kids for the first time. And to me, that was just like everything, because um, it wasn't really, a moment where we were laughing or anything like you guys, but it was just like, when I'm thinking about it, that meant so much to me, because it felt
Mhm.
like it was as full circle as it gets. He started
Mhm.
his time as my CASA with no family, no wife, and years later we're still going. We're still making memories in
Mhm.
different ways, and seeing his production and what he's brought into this world now, and him apply his CASA ways to his kids now. It was it was really awesome to see.
Love that. So I'm going to give you guys one final question, and it's going to be one sentence. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes, and then we're going to get out. So I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes to think about this question. And the question is, if you could leave a final sentence for the audience that you think is going to impact them the most. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to think about this question as I close out, okay? So I wanted to take a moment and take on a question myself, just because I was in the foster care system, and Anthony actually inspired me. He said, "Man, like you really need to share a little bit of your story." Um, so I wanted to put that into my final thoughts on advice that I'd give a new CASA. And I believe that my greatest fear, and I think most of our greatest fear, is to be seen as we are, and that level of vulnerability to be rejected, right? To be seen as we are, fully us, transparent, broken, moments of not feeling successful, not feeling worthy. And this is something that I believe can really be propelled to any vertical of life, anywhere you're at, any age, no gaps included. And I think accumulatively, our greatest fear as humans is to truly be seen as we are, and for that person not to be loved. So therefore, what we do as foster youth and people in general is we create masks, the same way that Vanessa talked about it, the same way Josh had to create a mask of being a superhero and a character, the same way that Anthony had to put on the mask of being happy and resilient, and the same way that I had to put on the mask of being the perfect candidate to be loved, to be adopted, to be seen as I am. And the advice that I would leave with anybody who is a new CASA is to love without condition. And it doesn't mean not to reprimand or not to guide. There's a sense of loving somebody enough not to leave them where they're at, but loving them where they're at, I think is really, really important, because we're all in different stages and journeys of life. And I think this can be a statement that can be used in corporate America, loving from all the way from the top, all the way down, from superiors to subordinates, loving them as they are. And when we use that framework with foster youth specifically, It allows a level of vulnerability that can only be accessed through that unconditional love, because the amount of trauma and damage that happens in a foster child's life is extreme. And most of us learn that being invisible is the best way to stay out of trouble, in the same way Josh learned through the physical abuse that he experienced over and over and over, the same way that Vanessa found, if I'm invisible, maybe I'm more worthy that way. And loving people as they are, seeing them as they are, is, I would say, the number one key to accessing someone's love and being able to help them take their mask off. And second, be patient. It's not an easy process. What you're doing does make a difference. We heard it right here tonight, that the moment you walk in, you already started making an impact in that young person's life. It doesn't go in vain. It doesn't go unseen. It doesn't go unnoticed. Now, sometimes the gratification that we'll get from that is until 10, 12, 15 years later, where they're able to sit on a panel and vocalize that the journey that they went through was worth going through because there was a you, aka a CASA, in their life. And I want to thank the entire Voices for Children team for being the voice of hope for a group of little Luises, little Joshes, Vanessas, and Anthonys that don't have a voice, and for filling in and stepping in the gap between a little kid and a really, really big legal system. So as we close out, we have one sentence left, and then I'm going to say my goodbyes to everybody. And thank you guys all so much for joining me. Josh, as we close out, give everybody a one sentence on what they should take away from tonight, or if you want to go off key and give me a sentence of something philanthropic or whatever, give us something.
Yeah, I mean, I think this would go along with all aspects of life. Don't be quick to judge, just be naturally curious.
Ooh, very good. Vanessa.
I would say you're here for a reason. Follow through. That's it. But I
And
also, can I add one more sentence? I was gonna debate. My
you know
other
what? I
sentence,
could say no, but since you asked me publicly, I have to say yes. One more sentence,
exactly.
Vanessa.
I would say to anyone thinking about being a CASA, Laura didn't save my life by being extraordinary, but by being ordinary, she taught me that I could save my own. So just do it.
I'm glad that we gave you a second sentence.
Come
Anthony,
on
as we
now.
close out,
There's no way I follow that up, but
look at the hearts. Everyone's going crazy in the chat.
yeah.
This is a drum roll. Last
Yeah.
sentence.
I think I'll come from the perspective that it's just like thank you for being here tonight. And what's next for you is to make sure that our words don't get lost in time, lost in space. You were here for a reason. Whether it's finding out more about how you can make an impact to a foster youth near you, whether it's just telling somebody about what you heard tonight, letting that these words continue on and be heard. It will voice the next foster youth story.
Thank you guys, everybody, so much for joining us this evening at the Real World panel with your guests, Josh, Vanessa, Anthony. We want to give a big special shout out to Sabrina, Jessica, and the entire team. And as we close out, if you have interest in wanting to know more information about what the impact, what we're doing here at Voices for Children, you can go ahead and Google National CASA website. Just Google it, National CASA website, and you'll get all the information you need, and you'll be able to be an impactful resource for the time to come. Love you guys, and it was such an honor. Have a wonderful night. Take care.